to try.
Had to laugh because when I was taught refuge and prostrations, there was either a text with it or the Lama was telling how, what was traditionally taught was that when you get up, you want to push up with your hands, but not with your fists, because this would be like a hoofed animal. And so you would be reborn as an animal.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm at the point with my arthritis in my toes that I can get down there, but to get up, I have to do it like this. So it's a reminder of my limitations.
No, but maybe you're exhausting your karma.
Right. I hope that's it. I hope that's it. Dave, are there any Zoomers? All right, so let's welcome everyone. Thank you for this kind of late notice event that we're having with Shurafka this weekend, and so happy you're here. So with no further ado, let's start with the opening prayers, page 5. Oh, thank you. With all enemies who hate me, hinders who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinders who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinders who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. To this end, I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until Buddhahood. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until death. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue from today until tomorrow, this time. All sentient beings equal to the ends of space take refuge in the nature of all the body, speech, minds, qualities, and activities of those thus gone in the 10 directions and 3 times, the wellspring of the 84,000 heaps of Dharma, the sovereign of all the noble Sanghas, the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Idams Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma protectors, and guardians, wisdom eye. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage guru. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Idams Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma, protectors, and guardians with the wisdom eye. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage good. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy dharmas. We take refuge in the noble sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma protectors, and with the wisdom I. Till I reach the heart of awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha's hall. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too I take refuge. Just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so. Till I reach the heart awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha's all. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too I take refuge. Just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind awakening. And in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings, I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so. Till I reach the heart awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha's soul. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too, I take refuge. Just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind awakening. And in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings, I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for beings' benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for beings' benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for beings' benefit. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. By prostrating, offering, and confessing thus, by rejoicing, urging, supplicating too, any little virtue that I have amassed, all I dedicate for full awakening. This ground daubed with fragrant water and with flowers strewn is adorned by men for light, by sun and moon. Seeing this to be a Buddha field, I offer it. May all beings experience this utterly pure land. Om Guru Ratna Mandala Kudza Mega Samudra Saparana Samaya. As befits the different wishes of sentient beings and their intellects, turn the Dharma wheel of vehicles, great and small and common. Thus we pray.
Okay, good morning, friends that are present here and that joined us on Zoom. So these 2 days, I would like to talk about meditation practice. Why do we need to meditate, and some techniques, and also for those of you who have some experience in practice, if you have questions, my intention is to clarify them. So it's clear for you how to actually apply the techniques of meditation to your own individual practice, because it's always about individual practice. So thank you, Frank, Gretchen, and everybody for inviting me here. So with my limited experience, so I'm happy to share whatever I can share and to learn from you whatever you can teach me also, because it's always a two-way road. You know, like I'm sharing with you something, and you through your questions and through your experience, you also give me some hints, and it's very often I have kind of it broadens my mind also, and I have new kind of insights usually after teachings, because it's I like to do it in form of dialogue, you know, so we all share, we're all the same, you know, and it just I had big had this opportunity to practice in retreats. You had opportunities to practice in your life, so we all have something to exchange. Okay. So at the beginning, I would like to do 15 minutes meditation on Vajra recitation. So everybody is familiar with this practice. And so basically, this is very simple but very profound practice on Om Ahum recitation, which was started by Garchen Rinpoche. It really helps to clear mind, and it's very helpful to do it at the beginning of meditation session or in the morning or when you experience disturbing emotions. Even 15-20 minutes is very might be sufficient to calm your mind, or sometimes you can do like sections, 15 minutes and few minutes breaks and 15 minutes, and you sooner or later you will notice like how your mind becomes clear, and how awareness is arising naturally in your mind. So basically, when this is recitation Om Ahum. When we breathe in, we recite mentally Om. Then we visualize at the navel area a small flame or small ball of light the size of lentil seed. And then we recite Ah and visualize as the air that we breathe in. When we recite Om, then we recite Ah mentally and visualize that all air enters that small ball of light, and it becomes very bright, red, bright light. And we hold our breath for a few seconds, like very lightly, and then we breathe out mentally, reciting Hung. And when we recite Hung, we don't do any visualization. We let our mind just be free of any concept of visualization. So basically, Om, if it's difficult for you just to recite mentally Om, you can visualize as the air enters through two side channels through your nostrils, and these two side channels go just parallel to each other and parallel to the central channel. And then those side channels enter the central channel below your navel area. And actually this ball of light is located inside of the central channel, just where side channels enter the central channel. But if it's too complicated for you to visualize, just visualize the ball of fire in your navel area. If you practice Yidam yoga, you also can visualize yourself as a Yidam. It's really helpful when you are Yidam, for example, Vajrayogini or Tara or Chenrezig, and you do this practice from the state of Yidam. But if you don't practice Yidam, just concentrate on this small ball of light. Okay, and we'll do this practice for, yeah, please. We don't need to visualize the color. So we just breathe in, just breathe air as regular, you know. But actually, that's a good question, because if some of you has difficulty to just follow air that you breathe in, you can visualize white light. Yeah, you can visualize or from any color of the light, which if it's easier for you. Okay, but usually there is no instruction on visualization of the color light, but it's actually your skillful means. If it's helpful for you, it helps your concentration. Do it. Okay. Okay. So we do 15 minutes practice. We have different types of meditations, different types of practices. But when we speak about meditation, real meditation starts when we're starting looking inside. Okay. So any kind of practice, if your mind is wandering, if we grasp for all kind of thoughts and emotions, it means we only follow outer practice. It's like outer circle of practice. It's just a outer form of practice. It's still good, and many beginners actually start from this outer form. They recite mantras, they practice sadhanas, maybe without clear visualization, without good concentration. They read the text. So it's still good because it makes very good imprints in our mind. But to really meditate, when we really meditate, we start, or like when we start looking inside, then that's when real meditation starts. And there are different practices which can be helpful. There are so many different practices. So to understand really what meditation is about and what happening during meditation, it's important to understand first four clashes. So basically, what are four clashes? Four clashes are basically clash is something that is obscuring our mind or like somebody's mind from clarity, obscuring clarity of mind, or like it's obscured state of mind, and that does not allow clearly see what's really happening, to does not allow really recognize its natural state. So, and those main four clashes result in negative karma and in suffering. So first clash is ignorance. Yeah, it's at the very beginning we do not recognize we do not recognize our natural state. If we are familiar with the prayer of Kuntuzampo, prayer Kuntuzampo is wonderful teaching which explains how samsara is arising and what to do in order to conquer samsara, to dissolve samsara. So, and in prayer of Kuntuzampa, it is said that first is ignorance, is not recognition of the natural state, of Buddha state of mind. And then, because there is no recognition, it's kind of, we experience like slight, like fainting away. And then there is a kind of confusion, but it's very subtle, you know. And this confusion, in this confusion, there is like, we cannot call it fear yet, but it is something from which fear is arising, this uncertainty. And because there is uncertainty, there is need to grasp for something, to have some ground, you know. And here there is kind of duality is arising. So when there is uncertainty and there is like absence of recognition, so here is where duality is starting. So there is need like to grasp for something, to have some ground to hold on. And that's ego. You know, when there is no recognition and there is this uncertainty, there is substance or like something is arising which wants to hold on something, and that something is the ego, the something which later develops into ego. So there it's very subtle yet. So, and that ego wants to grasp for something because it's uncertain, it's confused. And first is what, first emotion we would say would be like, this is like subtle fear. ego wants to protect it from something, because it wants to grasp for something, because it's not confident in itself. So, and here there is a rising of negative emotions. From there starts, from non-recognition, from this confusion, ego appears, and then ego has to nurture itself. And what is nurturing ego? Negative emotions. So grasping, trying, like ego wants to nurture itself, and this wish to nurture itself is already grasping. Okay, so and it's on very, very subtle levels. And then, so because of this grasping and wish to protect itself and satisfy itself, so there are negative emotions: attachment, aversion, and more ignorance. So this is three basic emotions. Ignorance, which is from it's a very basic, from which is ego arising, and then attachment and aversion, two main negative emotions which nurture ego. And then, because there is attachment and aversion, all kind of emotions are arising, and those emotions, actually, this is something that nurtures ego. The bigger or stronger emotions, the more negative, which I'm talking about emotions which are based on this non-recognition. The more of this happening, the more there is base for nurturing ego. So the food for ego are negative emotions that separate us from others, that wants something for itself and does want something for others. So the stronger ego, the stronger emotions, the stronger negative emotions, the stronger ego. So, and then because of those emotions, they create karma. So basically, first clash is ignorance, and second is this duality, which creates ego. And then on basis of this ego, negative emotions arise. And then on basis of those, and these negative emotions is creating karma. So at that sort clashes. So this karma creation, which is based on negative emotion. So basically, we act on negative emotion, and whatever we do is, or whatever we think, even based, or whatever we feel based on negative emotions, it creates a result, and that result is karma. So, and then beside karma, this following negative emotions without awareness creates habit, so which we call karmic tendencies. So basically, these habits means that whenever we experience the same kind of when we experience the same situation or the same circumstances, once we have certain negative emotion, we have tendency to give rise similar negative emotion when we experience the same circumstances. But it's not so simple. It's like multi-facets, like where every second we have some reaction, okay, on everything that we experience. And whenever we have reaction without this mindfulness, we create karma and we create new tendencies. So these tendencies, or these habitual tendencies, these habits, to have the same reaction, or to have this same obscure state of mind, and that's samsara. And that's samsara. What is samsara? This is a circle, unbroken circle. So we create, we give rise to negative emotions, which nurtures our ego. And these negative emotions bring give rise to karma and new tendencies, and this all nurtures ego again and again. So basically all this karma and these karmic tendencies nurture our ego, and stronger is ego, the more tendencies to create new karma. So, and that's a circle. So basically the way out of this samsaric circle is through this dissolving of ego. But the thing is, like, if we want to dissolve ego just by wanting to dissolve it, it doesn't work. For example, we might have negative emotion toward our ego, but as long as there is duality, so I understand that I have ego and I have anger toward my ego. So, but this anger is something that nurtures ego. So this is wrong view. Just by having negative emotions toward ego does not get rid of ego. It actually nurtures ego. So, and nurtures this duality. So duality even deepens, because it becomes strongly rooted, and so that's a wrong view of fighting ego with ego. And so it's very important to understand that ego is a parasite. It's not natural entity. It's like artificial entity, which arising on a basis of non-recognition. It's not us, but we identify ourselves with ego. And we think that without ego, we cannot survive. That without ego, we become like zombies, or like we lose our personality. So, which is completely wrong. This is wrong view, actually. Without ego, we do not lose our personality. We actually bring excellent qualities, and they shine in our personality. So, but fighting with ego through methods of ego do not help. So they bring, they actually bring opposite result. That's why we need teachings of the Dharma to understand what would be the right path. And so basically, when I'm talking about the ego, the parasite, which makes us to believe this is our own kind of we are inseparable from it. But look, like for example, an ego actually twists everything, like every good intention. For example, someone has pure intention, like you sit and you have like pure intention, like you see suffering children and you decide to build children camp, where children can like play and educate them, anything, like. But this is very pure intention. But then you start to work on the project and somebody praises to you. Once you lose your mindfulness, once you get attached to that praise, that's it. Ego takes over this pure intention, and negative emotion of pride arising. And then if somebody wants to give you some feedback, instead of taking it, like you might think, how come, like, he's criticizing me, this is my project. And so negative emotion of anger arises. And this negative emotion feeds ego. And this way, ego takes over all the benefits, like, of your pure intention on itself, like, and it results in pride and in negative emotions. So, and then it's actually twists this pure intention into something impure. So then fights start, and then like whatever, we know so many stories where like religious ideas, like where there were fights and killing of many people because somebody tried to follow like pure intention of religious leaders. when it's twisted with negative emotions, when ego takes over, so then pure idea turns into something horrible. And that's samsara. That's how it's so very important to understand what ego is and understand that ego, it's not us. It's temporary, arising entity which is based on non-recognition, but it's not us. Okay? It's an enemy. But to fight with it, we need wisdom. Just fighting with it, like with your whatever, with weapon, with negative emotion, does not help. So we need wisdom of Dharma teaching in order to fight ego. And so if we understand these four clashes, ignorance, and then duality and ego arising from that, and then negative emotions that nurture ego, which result into karma, and then every act have result, which is karma, and also creates habits, karmic habitual tendencies, which will result to similar negative emotions, and result to similar karma. And so then we are trapped in a circle of samsara. So when we practice, there are different types of practices. For example, there is shamatha practice, yeah, where we basically ignore everything that is arising. Yeah, we do not we don't allow ourselves to grasp for whatever arising by placing our attention on chosen object. So, and then when we concentrate on object and we don't pay attention to whatever is arising, then mind naturally calms down because we do not nurture those habitual tendencies. The mind calms down and there is clarity of the mind, which is our natural quality. This clarity starts shine through, and then in this clarity, there is awareness. So then naturally, mind kind of those qualities naturally flourish, because they are present in our mind. So this way, shamatha is very profound practice, I think, because it really helps to learn how to concentrate. So there are also practices which are based on love and compassion, the Mahayana practices, which help to cut through ego, because once we turn our attention to needs of others, ego dissolves. So we cannot keep our attention on both, like on our ego or on the benefit for ourselves and on benefit for others. So once we turn our attention to others, ego dissolves immediately, and that's really clearly shows us that ego is very illusory kind of entity. Okay, and then also we have practices like Guru Yoga, and then all practices that are based on Guru Yoga, like Yidam Yogas, Nyondro, and all the practices which involve Yidams are based on Guru Yoga. And it helps us to cut through ego and through all those habitual tendencies, cut through all of this into the nature of a mind. So this, as well as like some Vajrayana practices, which help us immediately, spontaneously recognize the nature of mind based on the blessing of the lineage. So this is cutting through is possible because not only because it is nature of our mind, which is present, is always present, but because of the blessing of the lineage. With blessing of the lineage, we do not we might have direct experience of the nature of the mind, because through devotion to our gurus, through devotion to all those practices, our minds or mistaken view that minds are separate dissolving. And in this way, to direct experience of our of the entire lineage. So, which is based, I say, on Guru Yoga. So basically, like all those ways, we can either use practices that help us to cut through ego and directly recognize the nature of mind. But sometimes it is difficult. Sometimes it's difficult from beginners, or if we have strong emotions, it might be also difficult to cut through. And that's with then we may rely on teachings from Kuntu Zangmo prayers. So where there is explanation of each negative emotion and all this and karmic tendencies. But basically, very first thing which we have to do is to recognize our negative emotion. So here we speak about relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. Yeah, cutting through to the nature of mind is a practice of absolute bodhicitta. But if we cannot recognize the nature of mind instantly, then we go through the way of relative bodhicitta. So, you know, there is like absolute bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. Okay. So before talking about absolute and relative bodhicitta and how we apply them in practice of meditation, would you like to take 5 minutes break? Okay, 5 minutes break. Okay. Let's continue. If any of you have question in regards of what I spoke before, anything that is unclear or you would like maybe to share, please.
Sometimes when I think of other people, I think people that big facts.
Oh, that's wonderful question. So basically, when you speak, when you think about suffering of others, you have sadness, and then the question is whether it's like negative emotion which nurtures ego or not. So here, what's happening? So we can, whatever comes to our mind, we can use either to feed ego, or we can use it as a way to help others and progress on a path. So when we see others to suffer and we experience sadness, if this sadness, then if you react, then there is reaction on your own sadness, yeah? If you react with thoughts, oh, I cannot do anything, I'm so weak, if you get into kind of depression mode, so then it's negative. Yeah, so it's a kind of nurturing your ego because you are, then you do kind of self pity, you know, like I cannot do anything, there is so much suffering, and so I give up, and this is a sign of self pitying, you know, and then depression and so forth. But if you then react, consciously react, okay, so yeah, there is lots of sadness, and even though I don't see right now the way to help, so may it be as a basis for me to cultivate altruistic motivation. At least I can say, okay, I cannot help right now, but I praise, like, may all those beings find the way out of samsara. May they always find the best circumstances, best help. And even though I cannot help, so may my prayer be helpful. And you know, because the minds of all beings are connected on a deeper level, there is a way for them to receive benefit. And it's like might not be like just simple, like, you know, like you praise, and if you say somebody like, okay, I'm praying for you and you receive benefit, like there is no way to see how it works. But basically, even you cultivating this compassion toward others, it helps you to get rid of ego. So they, because their suffering became the basis for you to cultivate compassion and to kind of weaken your ego, they already accumulate benefit. So you already helping them to accumulate benefit, which will sprout sooner or later with good circumstances. So it's like that. So even though you might not see, even though they might not experience, but seeds are already planted. And that's a way of bodhisattva path. So we cultivate pure intention toward others, but through this pure intention, we get rid of ego and reach enlightenment. So that's why bodhisattva say, like, may through my pure intention, I reach enlightenment so I can help others. So basically, and all those practices like 6 parameters and transformation of negative emotions, like, and thinking of others, of benefit of others, it is kind of, it seems that you're working for them, but actually you're working for yourself. Because on basis of that, you reach enlightenment. So then, and then you can really help others. So that's how it works. When you when you lessen your ego through pure intention, through prayer, you help them and you help yourself.
Lama Zarovka, thank you for the teaching.
You're good. All right, thank you. The process that you described before the break of the ego, the futility of the ego trying to fight the ego. It just seems to me this process is so, it's so profound and it's so subtle at the same time. And I'm just so struck by kind of the tragedy of samsara, that everybody's trying to be happy, but they're just, they just don't know the cause and effect. They don't know how. I thought I came across something which is just this idea that you made me think of. This is a Catholic writer, but it's not really Catholic thought, but thinking just about how the mind works, and said how many religious people rely on avoidance, that their faith somehow excused them from the obligation to penetrate concrete reality. And this is what strikes me here, is that we are actually penetrating into reality. It's no more than that. And this business of ego fighting ego and therefore making it worse, but under the pretext or the guise of making it better. This seems to me the image of the whole world. It's called a distortion of sentiment, in resorting to sentimentality, which is a distortion of sentiment, and usually in the direction of an overemphasis on innocence. So your question about sadness to me seems really such an excellent question, because this is what we do. Our sentiment is actually pure. It's our true nature. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the Dharma can use all of that. But we do, because of our ego, it's like we slide into sentimentality and we think that shows our virtue. So the whole world is out there. I mean, you see this so much on the internet, of course, social media with politicians. They're always doing this sentimentality, but it's actually misleading people, even though it looks like, it's looked like it's compassion, but it's not. It's all mixed up with all these selfish motives that we don't see. At any rate, it just struck me as very profound what you said. This situation we're in with, the ego, and it gets corrupted so easily. This is what's so amazing, and therefore the importance of the path. Because it's not that people don't want to have peace, they don't want to have happiness, they don't want to have meaning in their life, liberating others. I think it's all natural to us, really, underneath it all. But it just so easily gets twisted into these games that the ego plays, like a spiritual materialism, you might say. But so anyway, thank you, because I just thought that process is really very clear, and it's described, there it is, but it's just it's very hard for people to come across it all.
Yeah, thank you. It is actually, once you understand, then it's very clear, and you know what to do with yourself and with your life. And regarding this question, actually, this is example. Yeah, when we feel sadness, and we might cultivate pride, like I'm such a good person. That's it. Ego takes benefit of this pure intention and twists it and feeds on it. So that instead, like what was starting with pure ends up with depression and whatever negative emotion, maybe anger that I cannot do anything. So and this is so strange, yeah, because it was pure and suddenly it's not. It was a path to freedom, and suddenly it's a path to even deeper samsara. And you're right, it's like everybody wants to be free. I'm sure that everyone who would really understand the past and karma, so they would make effort to free themselves. But it's like, because of their karma, they don't come across these teachings, or they might come across, but they don't understand it, or they don't think it's really precious and important. And so Garshi Rinpoche, when he told me to teach, he told that very first thing, teach about karma. This is the most important thing to teach, to explain in details how it works. Because if we do understand how it works, we start to understand how to kind of unwork it, yeah? So unwind, like dissolve it. And this is very kind of complex topic. But some people think it's very simple and it's very like beginning kind of topic, you know, and they kind of the same as like altruistic motivation, the same as like opening prayers. So or neutral, they think it's so down to earth and like for beginners, I don't need to do it, but that's the essence of practice. Actually, we are starting practice with its essence, and it's how it says that, you know, like profound teachings, like when they start with this phrase Om Svabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma, that there is introduction into the essence of practice, into the essence of your mind. And if you don't understand it, so then you work on visualization. And then you visualize your, so this is kind of lower step, you know, like if you don't understand the profound thing, which is like very first sentence. So, so then you go to the next stage, okay, which is like, seems maybe a little bit more complicated and elaborated. So we start this visualization, and for example, we visualize ourselves as a letter, yeah, like with Vajrayogini, it's letter BAM. And if you can be present with this letter, so then you don't need to go further. Or like then you visualize yourself as Yidam. And instructions say, stay as a Yidam and cultivate Yidam pride. Yeah. And if you can stay with it, stay as long as you can. When you lose the concentration, go to mantra. So it's like going, you know, like to simpler, stages. Like if you cannot penetrate through, like first stage, you go to more elaborated, you know, like or more like down to earth stage. It's the same. We start from the essence, love and compassion, you know, and then we, like, if we cannot like give rise to this ultimate love, to this ultimate bodhicitta, which is the essence of everything. So then we go to all those practices and we go through all these stages and offerings and confessions and so forth. But each of those stages also has the essence. You know, each stage of the Nyandra has its essence. So when I was practicing prostrations in Nyandra, I suddenly realized, okay, there is Mahamudra in Nyandra. You know, and that's actually, you can do prostration in this state. So it means when you practice Mahamudra, you don't need actually to sit. Or like when you practice shamatha and like you do shamatha practice in Nyandra, like in prostrations, you concentrate one point on your guru, on the tree, and that's shamatha, you know, like, and so then you actually can do action, and then you actually present, you have this experience being present in every prostration, and you start to realize that, okay, you can do actions while being in this state. So those practices also help us not only experience those stages, you know, like, or those states of mind, but to understand that we actually can perform actions in, so it's like even deeper. So, but of course, if we cannot realize the essence through whatever is given, we need to go to more elaborated, like Dorchen Rinpoche said once that very elaborated sadhana is for people of lower capacities. So, which means it does not mean that a person will never reach enlightenment. But what happens, even in retreat, at the beginning, like we would start some new practice, like some Yidam practice. We would do it like elaborated practice, long practice, okay? But then when we would get used to it, And for example, once you think of Yidam and you rise as a Yidam, so you don't need to go through all these elaborated stages. So, so basically, you become as a person of lower capacity, but like in few weeks, you might move to the shortened practice, and then once you think of Yidam, you rise as a Yidam, like so. And so it's like that. So if we cannot penetrate to the essence, so we're given more elaborated paths, more details. But then when we have experience, we understand that every detail, every attribute has that essence. Meditating on each detail of the practices, every detail of practice is a path, is a door to this experience. So there is no better or worse. It just depends on your own karmic tendencies, or your whichever practice or whichever stage of the practice you feel more connected to. So that's why there is nobody's criticizing, who is doing what. Somebody is doing 6 yoga, somebody is doing Tara. There is no practice higher or lower. It's just personal karma and personal connection to this practice. It's the same as you choose your guru. It's not because you decide this is your guru, but because you have some experience. Yeah, and the same with practice. You practice Chenrezig and you reach enlightenment through practice of Chenrezig, or Tara, or Vajrayana, or 6 yogas. It's like your personal connection to the practice. It's like you can turn entire world into the mandala of your Yidam. You practice Tara, and if you are concentrated on this Tara and you have pure motivation, then entire world turns into mandala of Tara. So there is no need to run somewhere else. So each practice is completed. Each practice is a door to the enlightenment. So, and that's why we do not compare, we do not say this is a higher practice, this is a lower practice. Every practice can bring realization.
Yeah, again, sorry, but I'm so struck by this question of avoidance and how profound his question was. Because there it is, we have Buddha nature and you have this sadness that arises out of the death of loved ones and that. And of course, you can, even in a very conceptual way, you can think about how this is the state of all. It's like the Buddha's story of the woman with a dead baby, find a house where bring me a mustard seed that comes from a house where no one has died. And of course, when she recognized that death was everywhere, so too for us. And yet you can see how you have this really pure feeling of sadness, and yet we want to avoid it because somehow we think it's painful to the ego. And so we either just go into our depression, or we try to suppress it, or we distract ourselves with, getting drunk or something, all these things that we do that don't work. And yet we're faced with this thing that does work, this bare recognition of this arising of our mind. And yet, without the Dharma, you don't know. You run away from that because you think that's the way to happiness. Just get away from this aversion or attachment.
Yeah, that's
we
wrong
think
view.
that's the
Yeah,
path, but
what is happiness?
It's wrong view. And yet often I know from here at the Dharma Center and that in the West, when people hear wrong view, they often think some sort of sectarian thing. They think that it's just attacking to some sort of particular religious belief, and this one's right, and I'm going to hit everybody over the head with it. So they don't understand, this is experiential. It's your own mind. It's not just a concept, but we have to use words. So there you go. Anyway, I was just really profoundly moved by your question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yeah, Keen is saying for Zoomers,
Can you hear our question?
the teaching that we use, the Dharma uses concepts to get beyond concepts. which is very profound.
Yeah, we use pure concepts.
Yeah.
So basically, the karma, like negative karma and suffering based on non-pure concepts, which is based on attachment, aversion, and so forth, and non-recognition. But then we consciously create pure concept, and that's Yidam Yoga, for example, visualization. Or we transform negative thoughts into positive, and I will talk about this later when we speak about bodhicitta, like relative bodhicitta. And there is a way to transform negative concepts into positive concepts. In this way, we create positive karma, and with good karma, there is more from kind of there is more opportunity to practice and to realize the natural mind, or like to give. So having positive concepts, it does not get rid of ego yet, because while as long as we have dualistic perception, the ego exists. But in order to create positive concept, we need to use mindfulness. We need to stop from creating negative concepts and consciously cultivate like pure intention and stay with it. Concentrate on pure intention, not like having good project, like doing good project, not allow ourselves kind of to be overcome by ego, not to allow ourselves kind of to slide into impurity. And that's actually the path of holding on it. Like it's not only cultivating pure intention or pure sat, but staying with it, not allowing it to slip into impurity. It is, but here we actually don't think about duality. So, and the way, actually, this is good comment, but the way actually how we work with on the path of Dharma, it seems that we are not working, like, we should not work directly with the thing, we should not fight with ego.
Right.
We just ignore it. And because, but in order to ignore it, we just cannot say ourselves, okay, I'm going to ignore it and forget. No, it doesn't work like that. So we turn our attention to altruistic motivation. And in this way, ego gets ignored and dissolved. Or like in practice of shamatha, we don't fight with thoughts. We just turn our attention to the chosen object. In this way, thoughts kind of are not... thoughts don't have enough kind of our attention or energy to keep going, so they just calm down. These tendencies just kind of they are wearing out, because if we don't feed them, they don't have basis for arising. Okay, so and it seems like we are working, or we want to recognize the natural mind just by thinking about this. It doesn't work like that. So we're using different techniques like love, compassion, Yidam Yoga, Guru Yoga, or some other practices in order to connect ourselves with this blessing of the lineage, and through this recognize the natural mind. So it seems like indirect. We are working indirectly because if we want to hammer like this ego, we create. We give it more power, and so that's what Frank told before, that come across Dharma and understand what it does. It's not the cult, where we praise to some Lama, or like to some deity, because when I just I came to Buddhist center for first time, and that Buddhist center they practice Chinrazik. So I actually had no clue what we were doing, honestly. And so there is something, and when somebody asked me what is Buddhism about, I said, okay, you visualize something and you praise to it, like that was my understanding of Dharma at the beginning, So, but if you understand why we're actually doing that. And what does it do to your mind, and how it affects your karma, and how it affects your perception. So maybe then when you're doing this practice, you can kind of you get all benefit of this practice. You don't create, you don't give rise to aversion to practice. You don't think it's like sectarian, some sects, which kind of lure people in for some reason, whatever.
For some reason.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there are so many different groups and different ways, and some people follow the path, some people propagate the wrong views, and so look, everybody who's suffering is looking for some support, yeah, is looking for some group support. And like I heard like really crazy stories where people end up in very strange groups and they're doing crazy things, but they actually came to this group not because they wanted to be bad, but because they want to free themselves from suffering. And so and those leaders, they have no clue what they're doing also, or they're doing something for their own benefit. So it's really precious when we have this connection with true teachings, and we speak true, because not because we try to propagate something, but because we understand how all this like how the schematics, or like all this mathematics, it is like science. It is like it's very precise. Buddha Dharma is very precise, like mathematics, like, so there is like it's like we say, like if you make step right or left, and like you have consequences, it's very precise machine, like it gives you it is like a science, and it applies to everybody's mind. So there are different ways to express it, different ways, like different approaches, but it is mind over everybody works the same way. So, and if you understand how it works, you can understand what would be the best approach to yourself and to others. Because you understand the essence, you understand the main machine. So then, and there are different, you can kind of have access to this machine from different sides. If it doesn't work from this side, it's like the car. Yeah, if you're a very good mechanic and you cannot reach one part from one side, you try it from another side. You lift car. And I'm not good with cars, but I'm like, what I understand, you can have like, you can take part of the car and then you have access to the parts that you needed. So this is something like that. If you understand how machine of your mind, or like how samsaric mind is working, of anyone, like humans, animals, anyone, spirits. So then, and you send the main approach is love, through love. If there is love, if you do not try to prove yourself that you're a good person, but you really put your attention to other being with this understanding of how mind is working, like this, with this wisdom, you can be very, and with love, that's why it says love and compassion. There must be two together. If there is only one, it doesn't work. If there is only love, but there is no wisdom, like love and wisdom, yeah. If there is only love, but there is no wisdom, it doesn't work. If there is knowledge but no love, so it also doesn't work. There must be two. So good intention to help, and also wisdom, understanding what's going on and what is the way to help. So then that's how it works. Any questions? Mm. To repeat? Okay. Okay. So if somebody has questions on Zoom, please text it to Dave. Yeah. So and here we come to love. Actually, I want to tell that afternoon, if we will find materials that we need, we will do some exercises, which we did before here also. But this exercise I did with different groups, and I found that is the best exercise to recognize what's going on in your head. Because usually we want kind of to see, even if we want to see what kind of emotion are arising, what kind of thoughts, it might be difficult, we might forget, or it's like, it seems that many things are rising at the same time. But with that exercise, I found even beginners like clearly could see like how their mind working. So so we will do this afternoon. But now it's just like about a little bit about love. So we speak about this absolute relative bodhicitta. And if we don't have absolute bodhicitta, so then we start working with relative bodhicitta. And through this relative bodhicitta, we transform our karmic tendencies. So we basically take negative emotions. Again, all these clashes, yeah, these four clashes, and this third clash, negative emotion, which produce karma. So we work with something that produce karma, and that's negative emotion. And with transforming this negative emotion consciously, what Keen was talking about, is cultivating, consciously cultivating a positive concept, like, so then we actually get rid of the karmic tendencies, and we make very big step into the dissolution of ego. So, but in order to work with negative emotions, we should be able to recognize them first. Okay. And so that's how it is. There's four clashes, which are like ignorance and this ego, which arising on duality, and negative emotions, which produce karma and tendencies. So when we speak, when we work with using methods of relative bodhicitta, we kind of work backward. So we recognize emotions, and we get rid of ego. Yes, there is question. Okay, so we can use using breathing technique, like you mean Vajra recitation, yeah? Like breathing technique for Vajra recitation, probably. We can use this breathing technique in order to transform negative emotion. Yeah, we will be talking about this also during this today and tomorrow. So, but in order to transform them using Vajra recitation, we need to be able to recognize them first. And so the next session, we will be talking about recognition, how to recognize our own negative emotions. Because before recognizing, in order to transform, we need to recognize. If we don't recognize, it's very difficult to transform. Okay, so I'm talking about the one way of practicing. Of course, there are different ways of practicing. I say shamatha, there is Hidam yoga, Guru yoga, there's tons of different practices. But here, I'm talking about working with emotions when they're arising through, actually through using Vajra recitation. Yeah. So I will explain how to do it. And transformation our negative emotions, and like wiping our karmic tendencies. In a little bit about relative bodhicitta. So there is a bodhicitta of aspiration and bodhicitta of application. So when we before applying ourselves in some actions, we need, or before like starting to transform our own negative emotions, we need actually to have very clear view why do we want to do it. So it's not just we like telling, okay, you transform your negative emotions and that's it, you know, like why do I want to transform my negative emotions? Of course, like to get rid of suffering, but there is like broader view, you know, like it's we have to have this basis, like okay, our essence has this like innate quality of bodhicitta, of love and compassion, but we might not ever have access to it. Sometimes like sometimes we might feel that I want to love like this being, but I don't love this being, you know, like I cannot force myself to love this being. I hate this being. And it's like I actually went through this like when I was in my very first retreat, and I was doing this meditation on four thoughts that turn mind to Dharma, you know, for like precious human life, suffering of samsara, karma, and all these four like stages, you know, in order to turn our minds, start to wish and to practice. Like and it involves contemplative meditation and concentration also. So at some point, like when I was trying to cultivate love, and it doesn't feel like real, it feels like artificial, you know, and it actually very often feel artificial when people say I love you, you know, it's just like praise just to okay, leave me alone, you know, like oh, like I don't want, you know, it's actually like okay, I love you and goodbye, you know. So it does sometimes feel like and it's not because people have bad intention, but because sometimes we lose connection to it. And I was sitting in that retreat and I was like cultivating love and like, oh my gosh, I hate this person. You know, like I have like, and I have this dilemma. I have to love this person, but I hate this person. And it was like a kind of, I was splitting in between, you know, like what should I do? I had, for me, it was very big dilemma, you know, like it was like lying myself. It's like, I was convincing myself, you know, that I love somebody, you know, or something, but I actually don't love, you know, like, and it's like lying ourselves, you know, like, and like, okay, and I was shocked. Oh my gosh, how many things we do. We are convinced and we believe that we love this. I mean, like I don't speak about partners or whatever, but sometimes you hate your neighbor, you know, because like you cannot like convince your neighbors that like running around after 11 o'clock is not good, you know, like they don't like. We actually have this neighbor, and this neighbor says, "My house, I do whatever I want. That the kids play like football, you know, like just above our heads, you know, like." And it's hard to love this person, you know, because 2 o'clock at night you have to wake up at 4 and all this like, you know, sounds, but something like that, you know. And there is dilemma. I say like I love this person and I believe that I love this person, but there is no genuine, there is no feeling. It's like only in my head, only like I just convince myself, you know. And so this kind of, and we have this, how to say, this like kind of separation. There is something that we believe we have, but there is no feeling behind it. But there must be feeling behind. There must be feeling, you know. And so, and it's very important to stop and to be honest with ourselves. This is very first thing. We have to recognize, okay, the Buddha teaching says that you have to love, but you don't. And recognition and saying, okay, that's true. I don't have love, or I have love to this person, but I don't have love to this person. It's very important to be honest with ourselves from the very beginning. And if we don't have this genuine feeling, that's what Dharma is for, to help us to find it. But just to tell and pretend, that's a false, and it will not lead. This is not path. So Buddha said, okay, Buddha is called courageous ones. Sometimes Buddha called lion courageous because you have to have courage to look inside. People do all kind of things just to avoid to look inside. People are involved in very dangerous actions in to prove ourselves something or in others, but just to have excuse not to look into their own mind, not to be honest that, oh, I don't have this quality, or this quality does not apply to me, and I'm actually lying myself that it's not about even lying to others. It's the most painful. It's lying to ourselves. We might believe falsely that we have some level, but we don't have it, like some quality. And so then it takes lots of courage to stop and to say, that's true. This is the very first thing, to recognize what fault I have, what negative emotion I have. It's just not that somebody else telling me, but I myself see it and I shocked by it. It is always a shock. It was a big shock for me when I have to look and say, okay, I don't have it. I don't have bodhicitta. And that's true. And that's sad. And it was terrible. It was like an opening wound, but then it gives me basis for working, for finding why don't I have it? What should I do in order to recover it? Because we are taught that we have it, like our mind has it. It's not our innate quality, but we don't have it, like so. And it's first thing to recognize it and to be honest with ourselves. We don't have to tell about this to entire world, because actually what happens, we can cultivate pride. I'm so honest with myself. I'm telling the entire world that I'm so honest. I don't have it, So that's will have completely opposite effect. But that's why we say it's working with our own mind, and we recognize whatever fault we have, or non-virtue is arising, and it's not really our innate nature. It's ego. It's a parasite ego, which we are identified with. So we're identifying ourselves with ego, and therefore with all faults that are based on ego. But of course, it's not only saying that, okay, it's my ego, I have nothing to do with it, so it's not my fault. It's still our fault because we don't pay attention to it and we don't do anything to get rid of that. So but that's first thing is recognition, and in order to recognize, we have to be able to see it. In order to be able to see it, we have to be able to kind of slow our mind down, or to concentrate properly. Okay, and that's what we will do during our next session. Okay, so we will recite
Page 32, just the 6-syllable mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Om Mani Om Mani Om
We return at